Marvelous Marvin Hagler, a legend in our times and a legend of all times, part 3. Sadly, Marvelous Marvin Hagler passed away on March the 13th, but today we're going to celebrate his life and we're going to share some positive, kind words from the boxing community. I've gone onto Instagram and I've just copied a lot of the condolence messages from certain boxers. We're going to start with Oscar De La Hoya. Here we go. So, De La Hoya says, saddened to hear about the death of Marvelous Marvin Hagler, one of the greatest to ever step in the ring. Hashtag RIP Marvelous. Then we go on to Floyd Mayweather Sr., boxing trainer. He writes, rest in power, champion. One of the all-time greats, Marvelous Marvin Hagler. Roy Jones Jr., he writes, man, my heart goes out to the family of a legend that taught me the true meaning of consistency. He will be missed. Then on Mike Tyson's page, Mike posts a picture of himself and Marvin Hagler for holding some sort of trophy, and I'm assuming this is in the late 80s. And Mike's word underneath is, marvelous moment with the legend, Marvelous Marvin Hagler. So Hagler and Tyson, two of the best fighters in the 1980s, and we have to include Larry Holmes in that as well. Then on to Joe Calzagi. So Joe Calzagi writes, saddened to hear the news of the passing of one of the all-time greats and one of my heroes and inspirations when I started boxing. I had the honor of meeting him in Las Vegas with my boys a few years back. What an amazing man and true boxing legend. RIP champ. Then we go on to former super middleweight and light heavyweight champion Andre Ward. He writes, the reason I don't use the words great or all-time great very often is because of guys like this. Hagler had to get it the hard way. He was never given anything. Fighters like Hagler and many others worked hard to lay the bricks that I walked on. He had to continually risk everything just to be called great. Popularity and money don't make you great. Taking risk and overcoming makes you great. Hagler left the sport better than he found it. Appreciate you, champion. Then on to his rival, Sugar Ray Leonard. So, Leonard wrote, I was really in shock yesterday after hearing the news of Hagler. It hit me hard. We had just the utmost respect for each other. Marvin Hagler had every ingredient that it takes to be a great champion. Marvin, you are definitely gone too soon. But you will forever live on as one of the greats. Thoughts and prayers to the entire Hagler family. Next, we move on to former undisputed heavyweight champion Lennox Lewis. Lennox writes, I'm simply stunned to hear the news of Marvelous Marvin Hagler. Not only was he a living legend, but I was so proud to call him my friend. He was so full of life, energy, and positivity in our conversations that you would never guess what a wrecking machine he was during his day in the ring. Our wives would speak on the phone to connect us, and I'll miss his voice saying, it's marvelous, on the other end of the line. We were anxiously looking forward to seeing him at our League of Champions boxing camp when it reopened. This one hit so hard also because he was the one I emulated my own training camps after when I saw how seriously he took his training camps. The world is one great man less today. From my family to Kay and the entire Hagler family, our deepest sympathies go out to you, and we're sending our prayers for strength and guidance. Rest in love, champ. You will be missed. So clearly you can see that Lennox Lewis and Marvin Hagler were friends outside of boxing as well. Then we go on to former cruiserweight champion Tony Bellew. And Tony writes, waking up to the sad news that one of the greatest our sports has ever seen has passed away. Marvin Hagler will never ever be forgotten by his fighters and true fans of our amazing sport. I class myself as very privileged to have met you and spent time in your company, King. Then on to former cruiserweight and heavyweight champion David Haye, who writes, one of the greatest ever to play this crazy game called boxing. RIP at real Marvin Hagler. And then on to another rival, Thomas the Hitman Hearns. So Thomas writes, as we all experience life, we all share a common thread. And that common thread is we are all biological allies for one another. In my deepest sense, I want to send positivity and love to the Hagler family, especially love and kindness to the wife, Kay Hagler. It's in our deepest times that we need to send our encouragement from the media and fans. I lead with love and respect, and if there is anything that we can do, please allow us to do so. Consider this an apology for any negative feelings that was brought to life. Yours truly, full of love and respect and kindness, Thomas Hitman Hearns. We have to build and not destroy with our words and actions. All love and support goes out to the Hagler family and to the entire world. So when Hagler was reported ill, Thomas Hearns may have jumped the gun a bit, and he put out a post saying Hagler's had a bad response from the vaccine. Please send out your prayers and thoughts. And I think that's what he was referring to in his message just then by saying, please accept this as an apology. On to hip-hop star LL Cool J. And LL Cool J writes, rest in power, champ. Hashtag Marvin Hagler. Hashtag boxing, the marvelous one. And then hip-hop star Big Daddy Kane writes, rest well. And then he writes out Marvin Hagler's record, 62-3-2. And then he writes middleweight champion. Then on to Chuck D. Those who don't know Chuck D, he was part of legendary hip-hop group Public Enemy. He was the lead rapper. And he writes, I am in complete disbelief. R.I.P. boxing great Marvelous Marvin Hagler. And then he puts the handprint emoji and the dove emoji. And then Bernard Hopkins doesn't post on Instagram, but there's a 10-minute video tribute on YouTube. And I'll leave that link in the pinned description of this video. And here's a small portion of what he said, a very small portion. He says, I love Marvin Hagler to the point where I tried to pattern certain years of my career in the middleweight division on the discipline. Always being on weight. Before, in between fights, no matter how long the layoff was, Hagler was always known for being ready. Bernard Hopkins learnt that from and took a page from Marvelous Marvin Hagler. Last but not least, Teddy Atlas. So Teddy Atlas was one of the first trainers of Mike Tyson. He was Tyson's amateur trainer, so not as a professional, amateur only, but he also trained Shannon Briggs, and he helped Michael Moorer win a portion of the heavyweight championship against Evander Holyfield. So Teddy gave a 19-minute tribute on his YouTube channel, which once again I'll post a link in the pinned description. And here's a small portion of what he said. Sometimes you have to go into the fire to really meld, to really forge that sword. You want a sword of steel that will stand up and will not break in combat. No matter how difficult that combat is, well, you have to forge it in fire. Well, Hagler forged himself in fire. He was the man of steel. I mean, he was Superman to me. Punches bounced off Marvin Hagler the way bullets bounced off Superman. The chin on that guy, the determination, the will, the character. All right. So this is MSLB, Mark Sterling Boxing. Please do drop a positive comment about Hagler. Maybe when you first saw him fight, or anything that that Hagler meant to you. Yeah. And we're out of here. Have a great day. Bless.